Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Cal Parents and Families Facebook Live. We're gonna allow another minute, around another minute, so that we can have as many people join live as they would like. Okay, so hold tight with us. We'll be right back in a minute. All right, hello, welcome to the Cal Parents and Facebook Live. Cal Parents and Families Facebook Live. My name is David Ortega and I'm the Director of Parent Services and Communications. And today we're talking campus safety. And to do that best, we wanted to bring in some people that could really help us explain to all the parents who have questions on how we as a university take this as a serious and most important priority for the campus. So today we are featuring Vice Chancellor for Administration, Marc Fisher. We have UCPD Police Chief, Margo Bennett. We have UCPD Sergeant Sabrina Reich, Berkeley Police Chief, Jennifer Lewis, Sergeant Veronica Rodrigues from the Berkeley Police Department. And also we are fortunate to have Berkeley City Councilmember, Rigel Robinson. Thank you all for joining us and thank you for being here for our parents. I'm gonna have each of them introduce themselves and explain their role on the campus or in the Berkeley community. So we're gonna start with Vice Chancellor Marc Fisher.
Great, thanks, David. Hello, everybody, and I'm glad you could join us this afternoon. Again, I'm Marc Fisher, Vice Chancellor for Administration. And my portfolio includes many of the operations on the campus, including human resources, design and construction, facilities, purchasing, IT, business services, and I really appreciate the "and" here because I enjoy working with them, our University Police Department. And I've had the privilege of working with Chief Bennett for the last 4 years. And prior to that, in my prior job, I also had a police department reporting to me. So a great privilege to work with this amazing group of people. Maybe I'll turn it over to Margo.
Hi, thank you for joining us today. My name is Margo Bennett. I'm the Chief of Police at the University of California Police Department in Berkeley. I've been the chief for 8.5 years. I've been in Berkeley for 19.5 years. Love this place. It's home for me and my 2 kids. Tell you a little bit about us. We have 14 sworn officers. We have about 40 security guards that are assigned to specific locations. Our police officers have jurisdiction in all university property. So when you look at what our department is responsible for, it's not just the core campus, but it's all the rest halls that are in the blocks surrounding the campus. It's in properties that we've leased. It's in the Office of the President in Oakland. We have a campus in Richmond. We have family housing in Albany. There's property in Kensington. We are really traveling everywhere, which is why we have such a good partnership with Berkeley, because we are in and out of their city streets at all hours of the day and night. We have, and I think Marc is going to talk about more of this lately, some increases in our personnel that he will explain. I will say this, I love working for Marc. He is a vice chancellor who truly understands public safety. He's been tried and true. I tested by fire, I would almost say. And it's a pleasure to work for him and to be the chief of this police department. I'd like to turn it over to Lieutenant Reich. I know she was introduced as a sergeant. She just recently got promoted permanently into a lieutenant slot. So congratulations to her. It's her hard work that reaches out to our community. So Sabrina, if you want to add to our portfolio, I'd love that. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. Yes, Sabrina Reich and Lieutenant at UCPD. I have been at UCPD for about 18 years now. Actually had the pleasure of working with Sgt Rodriguez, who you'll meet here shortly, who used to be my old partner here at UCPD. So we have a long tradition of working with BPD, and you'll hear more about that as we go through the program today. I currently work in our patrol operations division and work closely with another lieutenant in overseeing our officers. And I also oversee our community engagement and am our public information officer. And I will turn it over to the next speaker.
Before we get to Berkeley PD, let's get to Councilmember Rigel Robinson.
Thank you, David. It's so good to see you. And thank you so much for convening this session. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Rigel Robinson. I serve on the Berkeley City Council representing District 7, which encompasses UC Berkeley, the South Side area, and the Telegraph District. And I always tell people, in addition to the residents of Berkeley, in addition to my own constituents, that I have a second set of constituents, sort of a shadow constituency that's unique to our neighborhood, and that's the parents who have a child at UC Berkeley who may live miles away, but are deeply invested in the issues of safety here in Berkeley. So I want to thank you so much for staying engaged. Your voices are incredibly important to the governing our city. And thank you to this incredible panel of leaders that we have gathered here today. I'll pass it on to Berkeley Police Chief Lewis.
Good afternoon, Jen Lewis. I'm the interim chief of police for the Berkeley Police Department, a 22-year plus veteran of the Berkeley Police Department. Born and raised in the Bay Area, a family that went through the school districts and Cal grads in my family, and just very much committed and engaged in this community. And it kind of what really strikes me about an opportunity like this is that, we talk a little bit about jurisdictions, and Chief Bennett said, this is the area that we're responsible for, and we have a responsibility for the city. But just to be super clear, jurisdiction just means who's taking the police report at the end. If something happens in our city, on campus, anywhere in our city, we are not only empowered to take and have the authority to take action, but we do, and we work cooperatively with each other. I as we sit in this panel and really talk about all the different tools we have and the way we collaborate, I really felt like that was an important point to drive home, that we are all one city, caring for all those in our city. I'd like to hand it off to Sgt Rodriguez at this time.
Great, thank you, Chief. Hello, everyone. I'm Sgt Veronica Rodrigues. I've been a police officer for about 16 years. 12 of those have been with the City of Berkeley Police Department, and another 4 have been with UC Berkeley Police. I actually started my career with UC Berkeley Police Department. I've previously served as a bicycle patrol officer on Telegraph Avenue and was partnered at one time with Lieutenant Reich. It's also a member of our drug task force team. Was also an undercover narcotics detectives in our Special Investigations Bureau, and was one of the few women as part of our SWAT team for about 10 years. I'm now currently the supervisor of the Community Services Bureau, which is a team of about 4 officers who we refer to as the area coordinators. And they largely respond to and resolve a lot of the long-term problematic issues in our city. I'm also a Cal graduate where I was a student athlete. I played on our softball team, and I was a member of the 2002 National Championship team. Go Bears.
Go Bears.
Bears.
So I have a very deep personal and professional connection for this entire community.
That's fantastic. Thank you so much for all that you guys do for the city and for UC Berkeley. Okay, we're going to talk high level here. We know that safety is and well-being is the basis for what we do on our campus. We want to make sure everyone's safe, the residents and the UC Berkeley students, staff, and faculty. I I'm gonna ask Chancellor, Vice Chancellor Fisher and Councilmember Robinson, tell us how the leaders work to ensure the safety of the campus and the people in the surrounding areas of the city of Berkeley.
Maybe Rigel, I'll start and you'll add a lot more detail, but let me just start by saying that in the long history of the University of California, Berkeley campus and the city of Berkeley, I don't know if there's been a better relationship than there is right now. It helps that folks like Rigel are recent Berkeley graduates, which is just shows the phenomenal collective talent that comes out of this institution. And the mayor is also a Berkeley graduate. So it sets up a really great working relationship. Chancellor Christ, who many of you know probably, is a phenomenal person. I think we all have deep, deep admiration for her. And she has worked very hard to make sure that this relationship is as strong as it is today. Many of you know, or maybe you don't know, but this past summer, our long-range development plan was approved by the Regents of the University of California. These are typically controversial plans, or they can be. I'm proud to say that the city of Berkeley and the campus went to the Regents together in support of the plan. And again, our working relationship is one that I think should be lauded, is the way things should work. Part of that was a commitment on the campus's part to add resources to the city of Berkeley for mutually beneficial activities or projects, and we'll touch on some of those today, but they could be things like additional lighting, additional police for the telegraph area, and all kinds of other potential improvements in and around the campus and in the larger community. So again, I'm very proud of the working relationship. And maybe just one last thing here is we've set up, we're in the middle of quarterly meetings. We'll be meeting with city leadership at least 4 times per year. That's at the top level. But then what is unsaid there is our folks are meeting with each other all the time. So whether it's on homelessness issues, crime issues, you name it, there are deep connections between the campus and the community. And these groups are working together all the time. And again, I applaud them for their efforts that are continuous, frankly. Rigel.
Thank you so much for that, Vice Chancellor. You know, if I can impart anything today, it's just to show you just how tight-knit the cooperation between town and gown is here in Berkeley. You know, student safety is a primary concern for all of us, and I know for myself, that comes both from what I hear from Berkeley residents, including and especially students, but also from my own experiences and my time on campus. And our respective police departments are in constant contact to work proactively and to address crises when they occur. And we've had some real success stories this year that I'm sure we'll hear about more from our officers. You know, I want to name too, our student leaders are a big part of this conversation and have been at the forefront of that work, you know, asking for key programs that we can all work on together to make this city and the campus area safer. You know, I think in particular, I'm reminded of the bike patrols that we were able to relaunch. I think it was in September of 2020, just a few months into the pandemic. This is something that we used to have in Berkeley, but had to be cut due to staffing shortages. And it is a huge win to have that back online. It gives us more of an enhanced presence, particularly in the South Side and downtown areas where so many of our students live. And also conversations around lighting, student lighting in student neighborhoods to make sure that we implement these CPTED principles, crime prevention through environmental design, improvements that we can build out to proactively make our neighborhoods safer. We were able to get some real momentum on this just before the pandemic, got slowed down a little bit because we got a little distracted with an emergency public health response. But coming into the new year, the city's going to be doing a major overhaul of our streetlight master plan and trying to make sure that we center student voices and campus needs in those conversations to really light up some neighborhoods that need some love. And I think, it was alluded to a little bit right now. We're also coming into this conversation at a really exciting moment for the city, having just finalized a historic $80 million agreement between the city and the campus that has key allocations for public safety initiatives that we'll be figuring out how to allocate over the years to come that I know will do a lot of good for our neighborhoods.
Oh, that's great. Thank you. We're going to go to the chiefs now. Chief Lewis, why don't you talk about how you're working with Chief Bennett on issues that pertain to the campus and also to the city of Berkeley?
Yeah, and I thank you. I touched a little bit on this when I first spoke, but I really thought it was really important to very clearly state what our vision is as a department, as a police department in the city of Berkeley, and that's that we are engaged in proactive law enforcement and problem solving to keep all of our residents safe, treating people with dignity and respect, but keeping all of our residents safe, and that includes the student, staff, teachers, personnel at campus, and also their families. That's our responsibility. It's one we take very seriously. And there's no differentiation for us in the way that we respond to crimes. They are all members of our community that we care for. And what we have learned is that the stronger our ties are with the university and the collaborations we have with the campus, we're better able to address crimes that are most commonly affecting the student population. And sometimes we are able to unearth areas where education pieces and outreach pieces and creative uses of those tools can have a strong effect on protecting students, but also understanding how do we partner on our crime responses and share information so that we have a collaborative approach to addressing crime series or problem crime events that are occurring, most closely connected to the areas around campus. So really, we try to think of a whole arching approach to providing public safety for all of our community, including the UC students.
Great. Chief Bennett?
Certainly, we work well together. We can't be just one police department staying on our own properties. And so what you will find with Berkeley Police Department and the University of California Police Department at Berkeley is that we have really close ties. We work under an MOU, a memorandum of understanding that is decades old. Our relationship goes way, way back. This MOU essentially, lays out what Chief Lewis has described, which is we're going to address the problems in the area around us. UCPD is not going to stop at the border of the campus and not go into the city streets. We listen to one another's radio traffic. Our dispatchers talk to one another. The MOU is the part, and it's posted on the UCPD website. You can take a look at it. It prescribes how we work together. The practice is that we work together. Our rest halls are in the city. Like I mentioned earlier, our Greeks are actually in privately owned property that's in the city of Berkeley, but it's right on the border of us. If we hear something that's happening, we're going to go and help Berkeley, and we're going to go and be an asset in the city, in the South Side, North Side area, because it's going to benefit everybody. It's going to benefit our population, and it's going to benefit the city of Berkeley's population as well. Now, how we go about doing it and the actual practice that we have in working together, I think is best described by the real practitioners, which, David, if you want to turn it over to them, I'm sure they can bring some context into how we actually implement the strategies of making our community safe.
Absolutely. Let's go straight to it. Sabrina?
Yeah, so we do this through a combination of different strategies and efforts. And so some of the work that we do is centered around crime prevention, right? Because we know that our officers just can't be everywhere all at one time. And so we send out timely warning communications with safety tips. We communicate via social media and other avenues to make sure that we're providing information and videos and things like that to reach our student population where they are. In addition to that, we do traditional high visibility patrols of the campus, but also the South Campus, North Campus, and areas where we know that our students live, work, and walk to and from campus. And we have a very robust investigation unit. We do all of our own investigations start to finish. And part of the work that we do is in collaboration with the City of Berkeley Police Department. So it's that collaboration and communication and those relationships that we have built with our partners over at the City of Berkeley that helps each of our departments close out cases and stop those that are trying to do harm in the community.
Sgt Rodriguez, would you like to add to that?
Yeah, so in addition to what Lieutenant Reich had mentioned, BPD, we really recognize the need for a greater presence and visibility in the South Campus area, particularly while school's in session. And so when our staffing allows, we supplement our patrol personnel on Friday and Saturday evenings with officers on overtime who are primarily responsible for a lot of the South Campus safety. UCPD will often assist us in these South Campus patrols when their own staffing allows as well. We'll also supplement our beat officers with our bike officers, are now more enhanced bicycle patrol team. And they'll be focused kind of on the more frequented areas of the city. So the downtown South Campus areas, where the areas that a large part of our UC community lives. And lastly, we're kind of in the process of augmenting our crime analysis division as well, which will allow us to continually kind of evaluate the most effective ways that we can allocate the limited resources that we have currently. And I know I touched on it earlier, but as a supervisor in the Community Services Bureau, you know, those officers in that position, they also frequently and regularly liaise with not just UCPD, but also representatives from UC's Office of Government Affairs to discuss the significant crime trends and participate in UC hosted forums that really offer personal safety and crime prevention information to various student groups.
Thank you. Yeah, the parents have, you know, we've gotten a lot of questions from parents, and we've tried to combine them all and try to ask those questions on this Facebook Live. So what I'd like to ask is, I'm going to go to Chief Lewis from the Berkeley Police Department. And there's been a perception from the parents that there's an increased number of crime throughout the campus and throughout the city. Is this true? Is this a trend that you see? Or how do you explain that?
Yeah, you know, we are still trying to get our arms around what our crime numbers are post-pandemic. We saw a lot of different things happen during the pandemic, especially around the shelter in place, where certain crime categories took enormous dips, others rose. A great example is pedestrian robberies were way down during shelter in place. Obviously, there were less people out and about, but robberies at commercial businesses, you know, Walgreens, CVS, and things like that, escalated. And certain thefts went down while we saw thefts of mail rooms in dorms or apartment complexes go up, obviously, because people were doing a lot more online shopping and deliveries and things like that. So as we've emerged from sort of the shelter part of the pandemic, the height of the pandemic, we are seeing a rise or return to more of the normal level or expected level in our city of robbery rates and things like that. They're still trending below prior years, but we expect that there's going to be some leveling out as we return back to businesses being fully open, students being fully back, and things like that. We've also had an increase in gun-related incidents in our city, throughout our city. Many of those have been, they're throughout our city, but there are fewer of those in the downtown area, although there have been some incidents in the downtown and Telegraph areas. The nation is seeing that exact same thing. We've been very fortunate in our city that we have not suffered the extent of increased gun violence with injuries that a lot of other cities are experiencing throughout the nation. But we do know that there are weapons out there and shootings that have occurred, and we use a lot of our different tools that we have to try to address those and identify crime series and problematic persons to deal with those.
So if I can jump in following that, Jen, to talk about the campus and crime on the campus. And I want to deal with, before Lieutenant Reich comes in and talks about the actual crime data, I want to talk a little bit about the timely warnings that you have probably been seeing or hearing about. The Department of Education has a statute, it's called the Jeannie Cleary Act, that compels institutions receiving certain federal funds to report certain types of crime that occur on the campus. Now, every year, we have to put out an annual security report. You can find that online at the University of California. Abby Ogden is our Clery coordinator that is responsible for putting those stats and that information that is required by the Clery Act. What we have to do in the police department is accurately report those stats so that Abby can put the report together. But most importantly is to notify our community in a timely fashion when a crime has occurred. And it's a certain type of crime. The Clery Act, generally speaking, uses Part 1 crimes. And when they talk about sexual assaults, they also add in the category of fondling in with the sexual assaults and rapes and statutory rape. So we are required to put those warnings out. We put them out usually within moments after a crime has been reported to the police department. There are certain parameters that we work under for putting information about those crimes out. It has to be something that it falls into the certain crime categories. Part 1 crimes are how the FBI defines them. And it's crimes that our public needs to know about in order for them to make an educated decision about where they're going to walk, what time of day they're going to be out, who they're going to be with, things that pertain strictly to their own immediate personal safety. This is different than emergency notifications that we put out to the entire campus so that they can seek immediate safety. And those would be things like earthquakes, active shooter, fires coming onto the campus. Those are emergency notifications. Timely warnings have to do specifically with geography that the Department of Education has identified. And it has to do with UC Berkeley property and the streets that are actually connected to that property or across the street. So you could see or hear about a crime that occurs at Kips on Durant, but it doesn't get a timely warning because there's no UC Berkeley property directly across the street or attached to that location. And as a result, you might think, or we might get questions that say, well, why didn't I get a timely warning about this? It all ties down to geography and whether or not the individual is, if it fits within the geography, is there a concern for the public? In other words, is it immediate enough? You know, not something that happened 2 weeks ago or something where we know the offender and it's a singular incident. Is it something that the general public needs to know in order for them to stay safe? The Clery Act is highly complex. I know because I was responsible for it for about 18 years before Marc was kind enough to say we needed someone solely dedicated to this position. And Abby is available to answer any kinds of questions. David, you might even want to have her in future Facebook events with the parents. But if I can turn it over to Lieutenant Reich to talk about where we sit with crime on our properties, it'll give you some context with past years.
Yeah, thanks, Chief. So I think we are seeing still a bit of a shakeout, just like Chief Lewis was mentioning in the city of Berkeley. Still trying to get a handle around our crime statistics as all of our student, staff, and faculty have been returning to campus. But I think with the initial data, what we're seeing is that we really are holding steady with our crime data from recent years. So I will share, for example, we had a recent pedestrian robbery series on campus where we had in very close proximity, back to back, 3 robberies. So this series that occurred in November was actually consistent with the number of robberies that we handled last year for this time. So consistent or not, we obviously are concerned when these types of violent crimes are occurring on our campus and within the community. So we were working that evening and then in the subsequent weeks, working closely with the city of Berkeley. I know that they had a similar robbery series that was occurring on adjacent streets near the campus, and they were able to make an arrest of the offenders in that case, and we were able to close out our robbery series. So you know, it's that kind of close collaboration with the city of Berkeley where we're sharing investigative information and we're able to close these incidents out very quickly. I will add one thing that the Chief Bennett was talking about in regards to these timely warning notifications or warn me notifications that your student or you may have signed up to receive as a parent. We are hearing that folks are feeling like there's an increase in crime because of these timely warnings or warn me messages that are going out. And I think that what you may be experiencing is this return from the shelter in place pandemic conditions to in person. So we have more folks within our community again, as well as we've received additional training within our police department, and we're able to recognize and identify when these messages need to go out much more quickly. And so we are meeting that federal obligation to get these timely warnings out with not just the crime information so that folks can take actionable immediate action to protect themselves and others, but also the safety tips at the end of the messages. So we do encourage folks who are getting the emails to sign up for the text messaging. That way you're really getting it in a much more timely manner, not waiting for it to go through the email system, and you can react more immediately.
All right, thank you. You know, we've read that parents are concerned about the campus and the city budgets and how it's difficult for them to have officers as needed. Can you talk to us about the amount of sworn officers and other staff for the campus and the city? Let's start with Councilman Robinson.
Perfect, thank you. I so appreciate that question. You know, this is another situation where our city is facing a trend that we're absolutely seeing nationally as well. And police departments all over the country are having staffing challenges right now. It is really, really difficult to recruit police officers at this moment. And that is absolutely true in Berkeley too. And it really is becoming a serious crisis that we take very seriously. Our police department, our city leadership, and the city council, I hope, are on the same page here. You know, I'm sure the chief's numbers are a little more updated than mine, but I think we're hovering around 149 officers at this moment, which is a historic low. That is extremely problematic. What challenges that even further is that we have upwards of 20 officers soon to be eligible for retirement. We have a few coming down the pipeline and their trainings right now, but given that could get worse real quickly. What that means is that we need to overhire now to get ahead of that curve. Even if you hire someone new today, they're not going to start tomorrow. There's a lot of training and onboarding involved. But what that also means is that there's a benefit to lateral hires from bringing folks over from other departments who may be able to get started more quickly. So that's very much on our radar and a big part of the budget conversations we're having right now. Let me speak to something too. I think sort of implicit in this question is concern about all the discussion of police budgets and police reform in the air right now. You may have read articles or news pieces about reforms that the city of Berkeley is considering to reimagine public safety and reconsider what functions are best performed in the police department. That work is incredibly important. It's also ongoing, and it's really important to me, and I believe to our council, to make sure that we not let that ongoing work impede the department's ability to function right now. It's critical that our department have healthy staffing, and I actually believe it would be much more challenging for us to pursue the sorts of innovative reforms we're exploring if we're in the middle of a staffing crisis. So I hope that helps paint a more complete picture there. I'd say if you're interested in this issue, particularly the staffing question, there was a really excellent conversation that the city council just had and a corresponding Berkeley side piece on, I think, October 20th. That shouldn't be hard to find. Maybe someone on Facebook can plug that into the chat. And you can learn more about the reimagining work going on right now at a website, a portal the city's put up. It's berkeley-rps.org. That's reimagining public safety, berkeley-rps.org. It's a good place to get engaged. But I'm sure Chief Lewis can more elegantly paint a more complete picture of the staffing challenges than I can. If I'm missing anything big, I want to invite you to chime in.
Actually, Councilmember, you did a great job summarizing it for the most part. One small point of clarification, we do have 149 officers who are fully through training and eligible to work. We have 8 officers that we are getting through a training program. And I think it's important to note, not only is nationally are there some issues around hiring candidates, but we don't hire just anybody. I know the campus Police feels the same way, very much so. We expect a quality and caliber of candidate, of employee in all of our city departments, but very much so in the police department. And that's always been our focus, because we know that there's a demand for a high level of service for us that we intend and expect to provide. And so, I will share that along the lines of what Councilmember Robinson was talking about reimagining. There's nothing about reimagining that says public safety is not important and won't remain important. A lot of the reimagining work is exploring the things that we could be doing differently and better to raise up our support systems that we have for those in mental health crisis, who we know sometimes engage in crime as a result of their diagnosis. But are there better tools and ways to direct law enforcement responses towards proactive problem solving and law enforcement to keep the public safety, while at the same time we're exploring other tools and avenues for taking care of our whole community? Because the healthier our whole community is, the healthier we're able to keep everybody that's in our community.
So I'm just going to add to the points that Rigel and the chief have made. It's very similar for the Berkeley campus. Our numbers aren't where we'd like them to be. We have positions currently for 48 sworn officers. We have 44 in place. We just got budgetary approval to hire 3 more this year and 3 more next year. We're also in the middle of a reimagining effort. If you go to UC Berkeley and then type in Vice Chancellor Administration, there's a very nicely crafted page that comes up and talks about our efforts. Very similar. We're looking at moving mental health response out to a different organization that'll be under University Health Services. All the things that are happening around the country and in the city of Berkeley, the University of California and the Berkeley campus are deeply involved in all that as well. Just want to say one thing. We have 4 officers on the call today. I can't think of a more difficult job to be in than their jobs right now, because they're pulled in so many directions. There's fear of safety and a perception of crime, if not more crime. And also then there's this whole discussion about abolition and shifting away from policing. And so I just want to say that campus fully supports our organization, as I think the city does their organization. And we all recognize that somewhere in whatever the future might be shaped like, there will be a place where you need to have sworn officers just to make sure that that society can operate as we all want it to. So again, I have a deep amount of respect for the folks who are on the call who actually do this job.
I agree with you, Vice Chancellor. Let me ask another question here. Are there other positions that are important to ensure students feel safe? So UCPD, are we interested in, do we have people at the residence halls? So I know the residence halls have, there might have been some complaints of people, unhoused people coming by or what have you. Can you explain how we are securing the residence halls?
Yeah, David, I'm happy to jump in here and address this one. So the residence halls have several layers of security and prevention in place. Some of those are card key access, video surveillance, detection that's up at many of the public areas within the residence halls. UCPD also provides a dedicated sergeant, we call the housing sergeant, to all of our residence halls, and they provide training, consultation for the student staff, as well as career staff and students that are living in the residence halls. The res halls also have a program that's currently overseen by residence life staff, and those are security monitors. They're students who sit at each of the front desks at the residence halls, and they monitor residents coming in and out of the building just to ensure safety and be those extra eyes and ears, radio in if there are any issues that are occurring. Additionally, we have our student CSO program, and that's run out of UCPD. Currently, we have about 25 CSOs who are helping respond to our MOU contracts with the residence halls, patrolling common shared areas, helping to lock up computer labs and ensure the safety of the security monitors when they're trying to get home after their shift at night. Our CSOs, as you're probably aware, also provide our Bear Walk service. That's our part of our free night safety services that the campus provides to all students, staff, and faculty. And those students, it's a core group of dedicated students that are handling night services, walking escort requests in the evening hours, so dusk to about 2:30 in the morning. We also partner with our parking and transportation services who provide shuttles to help supplement our walking escorts with our CSOs. So as you can imagine, our student CSO program was impacted by the pandemic. Certainly our students, many of them left the area when the campus was shut down and everybody was studying and attending classes remotely. So there has been a backlog of hiring as our students have been returning to campus, and we have a dedicated group of a corporal and a sergeant, and I oversee this program, and we've been working really hard to build up our staffing. We're back to about 25 CSOs, as I mentioned, but we have an additional 16 CSOs who are currently in training. So as you can imagine, that is definitely a full-time job, getting all of those students up to speed and able to carry out all of the different responsibilities and capabilities that our CSOs provide for the campus. So I can tell you that we've been working really hard to get our numbers up, because Bear Walk, we've seen an increased demand for Bear Walk. For example, yesterday evening, we had almost 50 Bear Walk escort requests, and that doesn't include a handful of folks that didn't want to wait and canceled their requests. So we're juggling this, increased demand for Bear Walk during a time when, students are really impacted by the pandemic and returning to in-person instruction. So our hiring and funding is on pace. And so if your student is interested, we are hiring additional CSOs. Strongly encourage you to encourage your student to apply for this position. We oftentimes hear that it is the best job on campus, and our CSOs, they do a number of things and help them keep the campus safe.
Thank you. And on the Berkeley PD side, are there neighborhood safety programs that you have? What strategies do they use?
Yeah, so we'd certainly love to have a robust CSO program, but for us, the area coordinators in our CSB, or Community Services Bureau, and specifically the Area 2 coordinator, who's primarily assigned to the South Campus area, are the officers for us that really take that active role in neighborhood safety. The Area 2 coordinator is Officer Jessica Perry, and she regularly meets with UCPD, UC representatives, merchant groups, and various community members to discuss concerns, crime trends, and really kind of works on problem-solving ways to prevent crime. Officer Perry and all the other area coordinators also frequently provide safety presentations to fraternities, sororities, and other student groups, and it's often in partnership with UCPD. Our area coordinators also consult with our colleagues across all of their city departments to address safety issues and environmental hazards. I know Councilmember Robinson touched on this earlier, and so this is often frequently conferring with our Public Works Department on the maintenance of street lighting, the resolution of blight with our Neighborhood Services Division in the City Manager's Office. We're also providing our Planning Department with, again, what Councilmember Robinson mentioned as well, a subTED analysis, so a crime prevention through environmental design analysis as well to assist in that regard. Our department also partners with a nonprofit organization that was started by a Berkeley firefighter. It's called the Every Bear Goes Home program. Again, this program is in partnership with Berkeley Fire Department, with UCPD and the International Fraternal Council. And it's a series of presentations that are provided to student groups that promotes safe party practices and aims to reduce injury and death, specifically as it pertains to alcohol consumption. And also, as a former UCPD officer, I'll often consult with my UCPD partner, Lieutenant Reich, to discuss ways in which the city and UC can partner and mitigate issues in the South Campus.
Sabrina, sorry, Lieutenant.
I was responding to your other message in the chat, David. No, I thought that, Sergeant Rodriguez covered it
Oh, great.
completely. So thanks.
Perfect. Yeah. So, it's come up from the parents that there's been some unhoused people who have kind of been in and around the residence halls. How are we dealing with issues of unhoused on the campus?
Maybe I'll start and others can help here, but we do have a full-time social worker who's largely engaged in People's Park, just for everyone's benefit. At the beginning of the pandemic, we made a decision, right or wrong, to allow camping to happen in People's Park. It was hard to displace folks when there were so few options for them in terms of places to live. So that historically had not happened. So we have a larger population there than we'd like to see. And we're working with that social worker who's placed over 80 people in supportive housing since he started that role. That doesn't mean there aren't still people in the park today. There are. We are working, as many of you know, on a project that will build housing on that site, supportive housing, student housing, and a park. And before we start that construction, we've made a commitment to find housing for those folks who are living in the park. We believe the best way to deal with the unhoused population in a humane fashion is to help them find housing that's supportive, that is a safe place for them to live, and to have them living off the street and off of university properties. So we're working hard on this. It is not an easy solution. Many of you who are out there who are in other cities or communities that have a large unhoused population know the complexity of this particular task. And again, we're working really closely with our city partners to figure out solutions for this. And I think we're getting close to some really great solutions that will really be beneficial to those areas, particularly on the south side of campus. So, Rigel, I don't know if you want to add anything to that. You all are so closely tied to us in this.
Well, I'd love to. Thank you, Marc. I just, so want to deeply appreciate the campus's leadership on this issue and appreciate the question. It's a sensitive one. I think an important place to start when we think about this and addressing these challenging situations is naming that, for one, unhoused people in our community are much more likely to be victim of a crime than to commit one, and that we have a severe crisis of homelessness and mental health on our streets. And that's, as the Vice Chancellor said, the most important solution we have to that is securing real housing options for our unhoused residents. And Marc mentioned that number 80. I think a really important way that I've found compelling to frame that same number to people is to tell the story that that social worker has successfully housed a majority of the folks who are regulars at People's Park from before the pandemic. I mean, that is an incredible success story. And if you go to the campus's portal, the website they have up for the People's Park project, the renderings are beautiful, but all that aside, the significance of building supportive housing on this space to help meet this problem, I don't know that there is a university anywhere on this planet that is delivered on a project like this. It's deeply needed, but it's also deeply significant, deeply historic. But I'll zoom out, I'd say at a broader level, this is exactly why our staffing challenges are so important. With our numbers being what they are, it can be challenging to have dedicated beats for officers. We want to have more programs like our bike patrols that give our officers more of an opportunity, to really know a certain neighborhood, to get to know the merchants better, to get to know the personalities, the characters, and to have proactive interventions that can prevent the sorts of situations that I think are alluded to in the question from happening. And I'm sure our officers can elaborate a little more on exactly how we respond to these situations in the residence halls.
I just want to add to something that you said, Nigel, that the unhoused population is more likely to be victimized than they are to be offenders. And I want to stress to the parents that are out there listening to us that the added complexity of the unhoused population is the mental health problem as well. It's the mental health challenges that the officers run into when they are in between the general public and the unhoused population, and then having to turn to limited resources to assist with the mental health challenges that are truly out there. I think our officers, both BPD and UCPD, are doing fantastic work when it comes to working with the unhoused population and the mental health challenges that we face on the streets. And frankly, we need to have more resources to turn to. And I think the university and the city together are partnering to really try and make an impact on what's happening in our city.
If I could add something real quick, we have 9 minutes left, and I wanted to make sure we got to all as many questions as possible. But one of the things that parents have asked is, how can I help? Is there a way for me to donate my time or my energy or funds so that we can help UCPD, fund the things that they need to fund? Well, my colleague in the University Development and Alumni Relations, has put up a fund in the comments on the Facebook Live to make sure that if you are so inclined, that we have created this fund for campus safety through UCPD that we might be able to use towards all the different programs and opportunities that we've been talking about. So that's an opportunity. We are, we're doing our best with everything that we have, and we're going to keep doing that. But anything, if you're interested, we only put that up because people have asked that question. So thank you very much. And so I want to get to the next question, if possible. I got one from, so how is the cities using technology to deter or prevent crimes? For example, do the campus use surveillance cameras in residence halls on a daily basis?
So I can talk to you from the campus perspective on how we're using technology. We have over 2,000 cameras deployed throughout the campus. Obviously, we're not monitoring those. That's a lot of cameras to be monitoring, but they are very rich in details for us as events occur, for our dispatchers to zero in on a location, find out what's happening, advise the officers, and they are tremendous investigative tools. We prescribe to a technology called ShotSpotter, which has sensors throughout the campus. It can pinpoint exact location of gunfire. These sensors actually go into the city streets, and the city of Berkeley's dispatch center receives the notifications at the same time that we would receive notifications. So it's a benefit to both the city safety as well as the campus safety. We've installed some detection systems in a couple of our highly populated areas, and we're looking to do more. The Office of the President issues money every year for campuses. It's called the Violent Act Mitigation Program. We just recently had a meeting with a small group deciding on how we're going to use that money for technology. And you talk about if any parents are inclined to donate time, funds, whatever, into the UCPD efforts, it would be in the area of technology that we can best utilize additional resources, I think. Marc, you may want to talk about lighting and how that has been a targeted area of improvement that you in particular have focused on with the city.
Yeah, so first of all, for everyone's benefit, the campus relamped the campus a couple of years ago. That helped. We know that we still have areas of campus that we need additional lighting. Margo just talked about a special fund that can help us with that. I believe we'll put a chunk of funds immediately into additional lighting in certain parts of campus. And then with the city, we're a big voting block, if you will, in the city, and the campus took its kind of voting power and used that to help pass, it was a referendum or a bond, Rigel. Anyway, it basically allows the city to collect more money for lighting, and we were big supporters of that. So we'll be working closely with the city to see where we can enhance lighting, add lighting. And then again, we'll go back to the $80 million Rigel mentioned. Some of that I think we'll place towards lighting. It just makes so much sense. There clearly are places when you leave campus that are inconsistently lit. And one of our goals should be to make sure there's consistent patterns of lighting from the campus to our housing areas, to the fraternities and sororities, to the Clark Kerr campus. We have some challenges still, and we all acknowledge that. But I think we have the resources in place, both people resources, but also financial resources to make some serious change in those areas.
Thank you. Let me ask Berkeley PD a question. We got 5 minutes left, and our parents have asked, how can we help our students be as safe as possible? Do you have any comments or how they can best keep themselves safe anywhere in the city? Chief?
Yeah, I'm happy to answer unless the
Or
chief would
pardon?
like to take it.
Go right ahead.
Yeah, so for me, like as a former UC Berkeley student and now a parent, I understand the concerns and fears that parents have around the children going off to school, and which is completely understandable. But I hope that, you know, with the insight that we've offered today, kind of shed some light on the work that not just BPD has done, but also what UCPD has done, and kind of the focused efforts that we've have been doing to keep our campus community safe. But just some suggestions that we can offer. What you can really provide to your children is to emphasize personal safety. So just really encourage your children to be situationally aware, not be distracted by technology, stay alert, stay vigilant, and if possible, travel in low lit areas. Most crimes occur, we find that they occur, and they're crimes of opportunity or distraction. So be it, you know, an unattended phone or a laptop. And in the event that, you know, you or your child are confronted, do not hesitate and resist in giving up your property by any means. Your phone, your wallet, cash, laptop, whatever it is can be easily replaced, but your life cannot. And in fact, we had an incident a few years ago where a student would not let go of his laptop because he had his master's thesis on this laptop. And held onto a car for a considerable amount of time and sustained significant injury as a result. So that being said, make sure you have backups saved and stored somewhere, and ensure that you have, you're planning for contingencies. And if they do happen to grab you, fight like your life dependent on it. However, again, in most of these cases, those cases are very rare, and most criminals are really wanting to have an easy opportunity to make a quick profit. So those are kind of some of the things, you know, briefly that we can mention and really reiterate to our students and parents. I don't know if Chief has anything more to add to that.
Yeah, you know, and I just want to say Sgt Rodriguez is keeping it real with you. And we don't say that to scare you or to put the fear in parents that their kids aren't safe up here. You want to be prepared and understand the parameters of the best ways to keep yourself safe, because it's those folks that are deeply engaged in their cell phone while they're walking around, or aren't paying attention to their laptop, that again become an easy target for some of those things. And we really try to do a lot of education around how to best keep yourself safe as you travel around, and provide those tools. But I don't want you to leave this as the last 2 minutes of your call thinking that, you know, my child's about to get grabbed the minute they walk off campus, or the minute they're on campus. Certainly not. The more they get engaged, they get in these processes, and you kind of heard from us about our responses and lighting and all the tools that are out there. There's lots of ways to keep them safe. We're going to keep doing all the different pieces that we know best to keep our students safe and our community safe. We've all been engaged in this work for a really long time, and we're not going to stop doing that. But, you know, I know I'm very thankful for this kind of opportunity to reach not only parents, but students around these types of issues.
And Lieutenant Wright, can you talk to us about night safety that we have on the campus?
Yeah, absolutely. We talked a little bit about our CSOs earlier, and they run our Bear Walk program. So really encourage your student to take advantage of the free night safety services that are available, be it a Bear Walk escort, one of the night safety shuttles, or just having some other safe means of conveyance, walking with a friend, with a group, calling a rideshare service. Something along those lines. Have a safe plan, stay to well-lit areas, make note of the blue light phones as you're walking through campus. That way, if somebody does take your cell phone, you've got a quick way to get emergency personnel there very quickly to be able to respond and prevent additional crimes from occurring. It really gets back to crime prevention. We want to work and partner really closely with our students. If you can, try to convey to them and encourage them to sign up for the Warn Me text alerts. and that they're reading it, because we frequently hear that students are not reading emails, and that is one of the ways that we're getting out safety tip information. So we need students to take an active role in their safety. Our officers, UCPD and BPD, are very dedicated to ensuring the safety of our students, but it just, we cannot be everywhere. And so we want to make sure that they are practicing these good personal safety techniques. And lastly, just call us if you need help. Don't shy away from it. I know that there is a feeling out there right now in some circles where they don't want to call the police. And we just strongly encourage you to give us a call, because we are well trained across the board on campus and within the city, and ready to respond and make good decisions about the incidents that are occurring in our community to keep you safe.
Thank you so much. And thank you everyone for all your insight, and thank you for your hard work in keeping our students safe, and faculty and staff. My son was a student here as well, and I was a student, and we really appreciate all that you do. There have been a lot of questions on the Facebook page, and we will get to those. If we can send you a message back, our people will take a look at that and give you some answers back to the questions that you've been asking. We couldn't get to everything, and we've run out of time, and I want to just give everybody an opportunity to give a last, what's your parting message to our parents for their students as we go through this process?
So David, I'll jump in and be the first to go. I hope that the information that we've given out today has been eye-opening for the parents, ideally reassuring to them that UCPD and Berkeley PD are very active partners. We believe that the stronger our ties are with each other, the better that we're able to serve our community. We're here to innovate. We're here to respond and make a difference. And we are open to ideas and suggestions. I think you hear from both Lieutenant Reich and Sgt Rodriguez that they're out there really hustling and doing safety programs and pushing safety to our population. And our two departments are committed to making a difference in the safety of the students in our care.
Maybe just quickly, as the father of a 19-year-old who's a freshman in college in New Mexico, I completely get your concern and the worry for your children. And we understand our responsibility in this regard. So again, don't hesitate to reach out to us, and we'll keep working to make the environment as safe as we possibly can.
I'll jump in.
Oh, sorry.
No, please.
No, I spoke too early with my party. Thank you. But it stands, we're here. We're interested in how we can keep collaborating, not only with UC, but also with parents and families. This is a great opportunity for that, but we welcome the questions coming in and redirection of resources where it makes more sense. And thank you for having us. And I'll kick it over to Councilmember Robinson now.
I'm told there's something like 100+ parents on the call today. Yeah, thank you all so much for joining us. I hope this has been helpful for you. And I want to say how valuable it is for the city to hear from parents directly. I know how stressful it is to worry about your kid from afar. I like to think myself a grown adult, but even today, sometimes I find out about a crime that happens in this city because my mom sends me an article about it before I've even seen the notice or report in my inbox. I know what that feeling's like, and I hope that you can trust and tell that the team at City Hall and at the police station and at UC Berkeley truly cares for your children and will move heaven and earth to protect them. And so if this conversation has been helpful to you and you want to keep in touch, please feel free to shoot me an email, or it's always good for the entire city council to hear from you. That's council@cityofberkeley.info. And thank you for your attendance today. And thank you, David, for bringing this together.
All right. Well, thank you, everyone. Thanks for joining. And we want to make sure that you know that we're here for the safety of all of us, of all of our students, all of our staff, and all our faculty, all of our citizens in the city of Berkeley. We love the city and we love this university, and we hope everybody has a great winter break, and good luck in your finals, students. Thank you, and go Bears.
Go Bears.
Bears.
Bears.